Consider this mind experiment. Imagine the world was created by a god, but instead of the traditional benevolent god, it was created by an evil version of God. This god is omnipotent and omniscient just like regular God, but he is maximally evil instead of good. So why did evil God create the world? The reason he created the world is so he could inflict all kinds of terrible torments on his creatures, because he is very evil and wants to cause a great amount of suffering. So that would be the purpose of the earth in this scenario. Now, what if I told you that evil God created the actual world that we live on? I bet you would just say, I don't think he did. If I ask why not, the natural response would be, well, obviously, because we're not being tormented. To put it simply, the world contains too much goodness to have been created by a maximally evil God. If a supremely evil God had created the world we live on, we would probably expect it to look very different. Yeah, that's more like it. It would not be good for us at all. Now, here's the catch. If a world that contains a lot of goodness is evidence against a maximally evil God, then isn't a world that contains suffering also evidence against a maximally benevolent God? While the world we live on is relatively good, there are still a lot of things that cause us suffering like disease, war, and natural disasters. It stands to reason that a maximally benevolent God would have not made the world like this. This argument's called the Evil God Challenge, and it was developed by philosopher Stephen Law in 2010. It's basically an alternative version of the problem of evil. Christian YouTuber Trent Horn's made a video responding to this challenge. In today's video, I'll be analyzing and refuting his arguments. Trent's first argument is that the notion of an evil God is incoherent. This is because God's defined as the maximally greatest being, but evil's not a great-making property. Let's check it out.
But evil God is not an evil, maximally great being, because there is no such thing. Evil is not a great-making property.
Sure, evil's not a great-making property in our current world, but an evil God could have created a different kind of world. He could have created a Mad Max dystopian kind of world where cruelty's fun and being evil seen as a desirable thing. In this world, strength would be valued above all else, and it would be used for malevolent acts. Additionally, some apologists have suggested that God himself is the standard for moral goodness. So, if God were to be evil, then evil would be considered great. Next, Trent claims that there cannot be an evil God because a God is a being that's worthy of worship, and an evil being would not be worthy of this.
First, the concept of God is simply a being that is worthy of worship. That's what God is. And any being that is not morally perfect simply wouldn't be God.
Has Trent never heard of Satanists? Because they worship an all-evil being, and they don't see any problem with it. There's also many gods in mythology who had evil traits such as Hades, the god of the underworld, who kidnapped Persephone and forced her to marry him by trickery. He still got worshipped, and the cult to Hades was a real thing in ancient Greece. People back then didn't really seem to mind about his less-than-perfect moral character. Next, Trent says that evil arises out of ignorance and moral law, and since God is omniscient, he has perfect knowledge of moral law, so he would not be evil.
Humans normally choose evil because we are deficient in either our knowledge, our wills, or our empathy. But a maximally great being wouldn't have a weak will, wouldn't be ignorant of moral truths, and it wouldn't lack empathy like a psychopath.
I don't think that people that are evil are so because they're ignorant of moral law. Think of what the word cruel means. It refers to someone who actively enjoys causing suffering on others. This doesn't happen because they're ignorant of moral law. Evil people do know that their acts are immoral, but they just don't care. The same would apply to God. Last, Trent says that evil's not a property in itself. Rather, evil's just the lack of goodness.
Just as darkness is the absence of light, evil is just the absence of good.
I don't agree that evil's best defined as a lack of goodness. A stone lacks goodness, but this does not make it evil. Evil can be better defined as actively wanting to cause suffering to others. According to this definition, evil is a property itself, and not simply the lack of one. So this last point is also refuted. So that's it for today. As you can see, Trent's not responded to the Evil God Challenge correctly. For more videos like this, please like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.